You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Amanda, and I'm joined by my two friends, Tyler and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage, and we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So, welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Here we are again. I feel like we took last week off because of the holiday, and I feel like it's been forever now. Like, I mean, we only missed 1 week, but it feels like an eternity. It always feels that way.
Also because we haven't taken a week off in a really long time.
I know. We have been crazy consistent with like making it live, which is I'm pat on the back.
Yes.
All of us today. Anybody? I honestly, y'all, I came in today and I was like, I usually like I've been so busy this morning. Like I had client calls and then I just like stuffed my face with food and then I was like, oh, time to go. And I like sat down and I was like, I don't think I've taken a breath today. And so I'm going to take a breath as we get into today's episode because I think that's important. But like anybody else feel okay? So we have a solar eclipse happening like on Monday. I'm sure a lot of you, maybe some of you know about it. I don't know. It's always on the news right now, but this has been a week. This is like there are lots of things happening in the world, like in the planets, in the cosmos. Like the energy this week has been nuts. Anybody else feeling that, or is that just me?
No, I feel you.
You feel
I'm with you. And like we didn't plan this. I need to point this out for everyone watching, listening. We did not plan this, but like how are you bringing up like having to take a breath, Tyler? And I actually did a breathwork session this week. And for the first time ever in my life, like I think I've done it before, but no one ever called it that. But this week I attended a legit like breathwork session, and wow, I'm like, wow,
okay,
what the breath can do.
Tell me about that experience, because there is like this guy that kind of like tours the United States doing breathwork workshops, and I want to go to one, but I'm also like in a weird way kind of scared. Like I'm like I don't even know what's going to come up, because I heard they're really intense and I heard like it really can unlock like lots of different things that you didn't even realize you were like holding on to and whatnot. So what was your experience like?
Well, I would say that it depends on your intention, like what you're going in with. Our coach, she said, like, set an intention for yourself even before the session already. She told us, like, don't eat any food up to 2 hours before, and get settled in and write down what you want to get out of this or what you want to bring to it. And honestly, I think I did the not eating, but all the other stuff, I also was just like really going in, no expectations, no idea what I was in for. And then she said this in the beginning, okay, what's your intention? I'm like, I don't have any intentions. I just want to breathe and see what happens, kind of thing. And I think the intention that I came up with was, I want to get to know myself just a tiny bit more. And, you know, you always have to be careful with what you ask for, right? So I almost don't want to share my experience, Tyler, because it will scare you off a lot.
Okay.
Because what you
said. Good. Next topic. Let's keep going.
So the way you described it is exactly that. But I guess it depends on, again, I think some people were there. This was virtual, by the way. So I was in the safety of my own living room, lying flat on my couch, and I could do everything there. I can imagine it's so different when you do this live with like hundreds of other people in the room who are also doing this, because there's points where you're screaming, or you're just like punching a pillow, or like putting your hands in the air or whatever. And I'm assuming this is gonna be very different when you're with other people in a room. But yeah, it's like what you said. For me, it was very intense. So there were these cycles that we went through, kind of, and there was always this very intense point in a cycle where the coach also said, "Look, this is optional. If you feel like going deeper, do it." And I had this beautiful moment with myself. And this is again coming back to the intention, and like, be careful what you ask for, kind of, that I had this beautiful moment. I had to sit up because my nose was so congested from all the crying that I've been doing already before. And so I had to sit up to really breathe. Like, I couldn't breathe fully anymore. And then I had this moment of, wow, I can hold myself in this. I can hold myself in all the pain. And I felt like I almost watched myself from above. And there was these two voices. There was one, the voice of my intuition that said, we can do anything. Like, if you show up here and whatever the teacher says, like, you can feel all the feelings. You can think about the worst experiences of your life and whatever emotions come up with that. And I can hold that. My intuition was so like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I don't have any problems here. And then there was also the voice of the logical brain that said, no, of course you're not going to do this here. Are you crazy? You're not going to feel all the shame and the fear and the sadness and the grief. No way. And I had no tangible, reasonable explanation of doing this, right? There was nothing that should prompt me to do it, but I leaned in anyway, because I was really like looking from above. Oh, there's that voice, and there's the voice of the intuition, and I'm gonna listen to my intuition. It wasn't even a choice. I think my intuition just said, let's go. And that was a really cool moment for me. And I think this ties back for me to say, oh, I want to get to know myself a bit more, which for me was anchoring in this relationship with my intuition. Then I can trust my body, and my body can do anything. And I think this is something that people, women, talk about a lot when they had a baby and they gave birth, and they often share like, wow, I really know what I'm capable of now. Like, I literally, pressed a human being out of my body. And I have not done that, but I always feel when women share this experience, I often feel like, wow, they really had this great opportunity to experience what humans are really capable of, what the human body is really capable of. And I had a small moment with myself there to see like, wow, I can hold all my pain. I can hold all the emotions. And it wasn't just the hard emotions. It was also a lot of happy tears at some point. So I was really going through, 36 roller coaster in this whole session. There were like these 3 cycles that we did with these 3 very intense optional minutes, if you want to call them that, where I really went like to the universe and back kind of thing. But it was amazing. So even if it was hard, I'm like running around all week telling people about it. I'm like, you have to do this. This is amazing. And we were just breathing. We didn't do anything. We were just lying there, and the coach told us how to breathe. And she told us some stuff. She was talking constantly and like asking questions and checking in and reminding us to breathe and reminding us to breathe. And that was it. So it's phenomenal. I can definitely recommend it to everyone. Yes, it's really hard, but also I feel 100 pounds lighter. There was so much emotions that I could let go of, that were there, like somewhere stuck in my body, and I could just let them go, and they're not coming back. It's just, I was able to clear a lot of stuff too. So yeah, it's amazing. It's hard, but it's really, really interesting. So go do it. If you have a coach that you like and you love to go, then definitely go, Tyler. I can highly recommend it.
Yeah, I want to experience it because I think a part of me has really been like looking and searching for like that deeper work, like like therapy has been phenomenal and I've done a lot in therapy, but like I feel like therapy can only take us so far, and then some of these like more holistic healing modalities can like really like I want to tap into that deeper inner self, that I know exists that we don't always get to like unleash. And like that's why I was really interested in like the breath work. I've been looking at like going to do like a retreat in like Sedona, Arizona. I guess it's like got all of these like powerful vortices, vortexes. I don't know the plural of that, but all of all of these powerful vortexes. I'm gonna go with that, and I could totally be wrong with that, but like it's all of this like great energy there, and it's supposed to be a great place to like meditate and go like find yourself, and like not that like, and I think that's actually kind of interesting because like I know myself, but like I'm so curious with how deep can we go with into like our unconscious, into that side of ourselves that we don't normally tap into, like, and unlocking some of that power. Like it's just been something I've been thinking about recently.
And that means you definitely should do it.
Mhm.
Even if it sounds scary, right? Like, and it's so perfect that you said, Stephanie, it was all the things, it was all the feels, and that it was totally worth it.
Mm.
And I also believe that, we're never healing something, or we're never like confronted with something until we're ready for it.
Mhm.
Even though we may not feel completely ready, but now that you have these new layers that have surfaced, now it's okay, well, what are the deeper layers? And I think, Tyler, kind of you were talking about that as well, like, I really think I've done a lot of work on myself, but how do we keep going deeper and deeper and deeper? And I wonder, as our little like personal development junkie selves, like, how do we know when we've had enough? Like, how do we know when like we've, or is it really even possible to get to this point of complete, I almost want to call this like, this is like healing work, right? Like, when do we ever get to that point where, or is it even possible for us to get to this point of being healed? Or do we just keep doing more work and more work? Yeah. Tell us, Tyler. What are your thoughts?
Good question. This is going to be a good episode. I can already feel it in my bones. It's very interesting because I think about this a lot. I think about all of the work that I've put in my personal development journey, and all of the growth that has happened, and all of the healing that I've done. And I would say that like I am healed now, but that doesn't mean I can't heal more. You know what I mean? Like it's recognizing that in the present moment, I am perfect. I am perfect exactly as I am right here and now. But that doesn't mean that I can't go out and continue to grow and continue to heal and go deeper and like explore there. Like I think this idea of like how much healing can we do? I think it's an infinite amount of healing. I don't think you can ever heal enough, you know? But recognizing, because you can get into that really negative headspace of I'm not good enough now, or I'm not fixed enough now, or things like that. Well, no, you are. In the present moment, you are perfect exactly as you are right now. Not forever. Doesn't mean that you stop it, but you can if you choose to. But recognizing that in the present moment, this right now, and I get chills talking about this because like there's so much power in the present moment. And we so often forget to even appreciate how beautiful and how perfect we are right now, you know? Because we're often so caught up on, well, I could do this better. I could improve that. I could, maybe I want to go deeper because I want to unlock this and unlock that. I've done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of soul searching. I've done a lot of personal development. And I choose to do more simply because I enjoy it. I enjoy that inner quest of really unleashing the deeper layers of self and all of these types of things. But I now recognize, because when I started my journey, I thought I was going down this personal development path and this healing path to fix something that was broken. I realized now I have never been broken, like you're not broken. This is not like you choose to do the healing because you want to better yourself, not because you need to fix something about yourself, not because something's broken within you, but because it is a choice that you want to empower yourself more. You're adding to it by doing this work. You're not fixing something that's broken. And I think that's something really important to discuss, because oftentimes we think like the healing, doing the healing work and doing, all of the personal development work and all of this kind of stuff is to fix something that's broken. We are not broken. We are perfect exactly how we are right now.
What's your take on healing, Amanda? I'm so curious.
Like needing a moment to take all that in. Because I believe much of the same, and like exactly what you're saying, Tyler, this idea that when we do, and I think this is where, this idea of, are we ever fully healed? That question comes from, right? And like, do we ever? And I do think that it's a journey. I do think that it's a process, but I love that we've started this conversation with that, like exactly what you were saying, Tyler, that it doesn't mean that we're fixing, it doesn't mean that we're broken. Because I can remember many times where, especially in those teenage years, where it really did feel like there was something wrong with me.
Hmm.
And also why I believe that it's really important that even as we talk about the healing journey, it's deeply personal and everybody's journey looks different. I also think that it's important to notice or to mention that we also need a community. We also need people to go along with us in that healing process, in that healing journey, because it can be lonely. And it doesn't mean that you're you're not the exact same as somebody else, but I just mean like, to have other people in your life who are also on this path of healing, and to be able to get into conversation with them, and maybe you don't talk about everything that you're healing or whatnot, but just to know. And I think that actually helps to know that you're not alone, because I think that's where this comes up, right? Where I think I'm broken or I have to fix myself. It's when we start feeling like we're alone, like I'm the only one who struggles with this, I'm the only one who's bottom line, I think in every healing journey is this coming to that self-worth, that enoughness. Because any challenge that we have, in my opinion, it boils down to, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of that. And it sounds like a bunch of other things, but really at the core, that's what it's about. We're feeling like we're not enough and we're not worthy. And when we can see that other people also struggle with this worthiness, that it feels a little less lonely and it's a little bit easier to get through that process. And so for me, what I would add to everything that you just said, Tyler, is also that there's a community aspect that's really important on the healing journey.
I love what both of you shared. Like, this is so good, and I would sign off on both of those, on all of this. And for me, what came up with this question, can we ever fully heal, was also what Tyler, what you mentioned, this like holding who you are today and being totally okay with that, and knowing that it's a journey, life is a journey. And then also holding your future version of yourself, the vision that you have for yourself in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and aspiring to that. And knowing that just because you're looking for the future version and you're stretching yourself to get there, doesn't mean that who you are today is not adequate. And I think this is this beautiful balance, this beautiful dance on the beam that we all get to do every single day. And what I want to add in is this idea of seasons. Like, there's seasons where we get to focus on expressing the version of ourselves that we are right now. And then there's seasons where we lean more into stretching ourselves and doing the work to get to our future selves and like better ourselves, so that our future version feels better, feels more aligned, feels more at peace with herself or himself. And so, yeah, I think this balance act is beautiful, sometimes really hard. But that's, I think, when I think of healing, that's the essence of that. And speaking to this, like, is there an end to it? I would say, I don't know, there's no or yes answer to that even. It's like, there is no, the question is like, you can't answer that with a yes or a no. What I think is true is that essentially, you mentioned this, Amanda, in the years, in the teenage years, or when we are children, then these experiences that we had back then, they shape us so much. And we start to have these patterns that we repeat every single day of our lives. And then we're maybe in our 30s, 40s, and we start to bump up against some stuff, and we're like, wow, why am I so unhappy? Like, why does this keep coming up? Why do I keep choosing the wrong partner? Why do I keep being broke? Like, right? And then we start to dig and start to understand who we really are. And then we want to essentially change patterns, because these patterns are not serving us, because they are the little soldiers behind why we are so unhappy and why we keep having these same thoughts. And to change that is such a process, right? We can't do this in a weekend workshop or just like going to therapy once or twice and then, we're good. Doesn't work that way. So to undo these patterns or to reframe them in something that works better for who we are today is such a process. And I would say that especially the things that we've experienced as kids might not be something that we can ever I'm looking for a good word here, that we can ever fully heal. I'm going to use healing, but maybe there's better words to say here. But we can learn that this is part of our journey, and we can implement this and be okay with this. Because I think a lot of our pain in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, doesn't matter, has to do with resisting what we've experienced, and resisting that so much of what we experienced in our lives before shapes us. And when we start to accept and we start to look at it, I think then the peace comes, and then the healing comes. And I'd say it's not a matter of, are we like healed, but maybe a matter of, can we accept?
Mm.
And that's the healing, basically. So yeah, I can't say a yes or a no to this question.
It's almost like there's like it's kind of like no finish line, right? Like, because it's a journey, it's almost like the finish line is there, and then it's like, oh no, never mind. Now it's like, 100, it's moved, 300 meters, or like there isn't really. And this is where I think this destination, right? But when we're aligned with our truest selves, and when we're growing in awareness, growing in acceptance, as you said, then we're on the healing journey. And I think when we say healed, it almost feels like, yeah, there has to be like this end point. But I think anytime that we're coming from this space of we're that truest version of ourselves, we're accepting all the things of the past, we're showing up as our authentic selves, and it's something that evolves over time. And a visual that I was getting as you were sharing, Stephanie, is this idea that taking a shower. So we can't imagine that like we take one shower and then we never shower again, like we're clean forever, like we have to take another shower. And so I feel like this is kind of similar, actually, right? In this healing journey of, okay, we've accepted or we've healed or we've cleansed that part. Now we've integrated and we're moving on to other pieces and other parts and other, maybe versions of ourselves or other aspects. Like, there's so many words I think that could go with that, but I don't know. I think, to me, in this moment, that makes sense.
Well, I like this visual of the like the healing cycle where we accept what has happened to us in the past, and we're able to overcome that, and we continue to move forward, and then life is going to throw more trauma at us. Life is going to test us. It's going to hurt us. And I think the point here is recognizing that we have the power to make a choice. This is leading me to think about like the victim mentality or the hero's mentality, or what I call the victor's mentality of, do I want to be victim to my circumstances and let all of the trauma, all of the bad things from the past continue to weigh me down, continue to hold me back, continue to, create all of this weight that I need to carry around with me? Or do I say, no, thank you, I'm not going to give you that much power over my life, and learn to, as Stephanie was saying, accept what has happened to us. There is accept and then forgive, like you're never going to forget what happened to you. And I'm talking trauma here. We've all had traumatic experiences, and we're never going to forget those traumatic experiences, but we can forgive the traumatic experiences. And the thing about forgiveness and acceptance is, this is not like whatever traumatic event happened. Like, for example, like my parents, I've talked about my parents before. They shocked me when I found out that both of them were struggling with a crystal meth addiction. I did not see that coming. That was a very traumatic event that I went through in my life. Like, seeing my parents one way and then now all of a sudden seeing them another way, and having to navigate all of that, that was a traumatic event. It was something that I classify as trauma. And I will never forget that event. I will never forget that they did those things. I will never forget the impact that it made on me and my family and everyone around us. But I can forgive. I can forgive my parents. I can forgive the situation, and I can accept that this is now a reality of my life, but I'm not going to give it power. I'm not going to play the victim and say, oh no, like this happened to me and like pity me. No, I get up and I choose to forgive, and I choose to move forward, and I choose to allow myself to heal through that. And like healing and doing this type of work is one of the most empowering things that we can do as people. You know, healing is not a weakness. It's not showing that you are weak. It is actually showing that I am strong. I am strong because I'm able to accept what is happening. I am strong because I'm able to forgive my past, to let go, and to surrender to what has happened, and to know that like I am stronger than my past. I am stronger than my trauma. And like that to me is what healing is all about. It's not about fixing something that is broken. It is about forgiving, for accepting, for letting go, and coming out stronger on the other end. And it is the most powerful thing that you can do, you know? And coming back to, I have to also add in, because Amanda was talking about community and recognizing that if we stop and really think about every single human on this planet, every single human on this planet has had some sort of trauma, some sort of, some sort of event that has shaped, that has hurt them, that has made them feel a certain way. We are all traumatized. We all have things that we are healing through. And it's this great reminder that together, there's more power in community. There's more power in us coming out and having these conversations to say, hey, I've also been through trauma. I've also experienced this. They're not the same experiences. What I went through, Stephanie didn't go through, or Amanda didn't go through, or you didn't go through. But there is a collective, there's a collective sameness there. Or I've kind of coined this term. I call it uniquely universal, where like everybody's trauma is unique to them, but trauma as a whole is universal. We've all experienced these kind of things. And I think it's so empowering to have these conversations, to say like, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone struggling through this. Like, let's open up. Let's talk about these kind of things. When I started to share, my story of my parents' addiction and how that affected me, I had so many people message me and saying, oh, my mom struggled with this, or my brother struggled with this, or my cousin, or my friend. Like, I started to have people just open up, and it's in that ability to share and open up and to not hide behind the shame that healing happens, by sharing, by showing up, by making a commitment to not be the victim but choose to be the victor. That's how you're going to heal. But you're never healed, because life is always going to test you. Life is always going to find ways to kind of traumatize you, unfortunately. But recognizing that we have the power of how we respond to the trauma, how we respond to the incidents, and choose to be a victor in the situation.
Yeah, I'd also want to add this: when we're choosing to be the victor, it's also the opportunity that we have to learn from those challenges. Like, what are those things that we've learned? Like, you mentioned a lot about strength, and absolutely, right? All the strength that we get, but like, there's so many different strengths out there, and through our experiences that we've been able to, and I think for a lot of coaches especially, it's this turning pain into power, right? And I think in so many other ways people do this, but especially for coaches, I notice so many of them, and like, I definitely myself included, is like, I struggled as a teen and now I don't want other teens to struggle, so this is my purpose now, right? Like, this is, so it fuels my passion, because I know how much it would have meant to me to have somebody like me as a teenager to be able to guide me and support me. And so I feel like when we can look at these traumatic situations, and it may not be, in that very moment, but when we can reflect and when we're getting into that place of acceptance and awareness, and we can see, well, what did I get to learn here? Like, yes, I went through this traumatic event and I will never forget it. But how can I turn that into something more powerful? How can I turn that into a lesson? And also I would argue that this is also like healing. We're turning this into healing by using it. Like, even I think, Tyler, that was a good example of what you were saying about sharing about your parents. And then there's other people who are raising their hand and saying, hey, I've dealt with that too. And maybe some of them are still ashamed and maybe haven't told anyone. But when you can see somebody else that's struggling with the same thing, suddenly you put your guard down. You're like, oh, somebody gets me. Somebody else knows, the struggle of this thing. And though it would still show up completely different for everybody because everybody's different, but I just think we need to remember that through these challenging times, through the difficulties, through the trauma, there is always a gift. Even though, like, as you're going through it, like I said, it's like, what? Like, no way is there a gift here. Like, you can take that gift back, or like, I'm re-gifting that one. Like, no, thank you. But there always is, right? And sometimes it takes a couple years to discover what the gift is. But when we can recognize how that's helped us to become the versions of ourselves that we are later on, I've always been super grateful for all the challenges that I've had because I've taken that time. And I do believe that, we did talk about acceptance, and I think that helps in that process, is being able to see those as learning opportunities, as things that strengthen us, that have given us more courage, more patience, more love, more kindness. I don't know. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm thinking.
That's beautiful. And I want to like add something to this like whole journey that we go through of finding the gift in it all. And you mentioned it, Amanda, sometimes it can take years and sometimes it can take decades, like really decades. It's not, I think the way the two of you were sharing this so beautifully, I was like, wow, this is so wonderful, and like finding a way out of no way and like all these great affirmations. And then I thought about my own journey and a few of my biggest pains and just how long it took to become like, to get out of the victimhood and into the victor. Like that was not overnight. That was not, oh yeah, one coaching program and I'm done, or like 1 year of therapy and I'm good, or something like that. It took a really, really long time, also because I was in the victimhood for a really long time. Like this struggle, you mentioned this before, Amanda, when I was younger, in my teen years or early adulthood, of like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And especially in my case, I had so much shame around asking for help. I thought that asking or like seeking some kind of help externally means that I'm admitting that I need to shrink and like I am broken and I'm like crazy person and I need to be like put in some kind of facility and I'm like really wrong, right? So I had totally had this victimhood mentality and this like, oh, I need to be fixed kind of mindset. And the irony of all of this actually got me into coaching, because eventually I broke down and I said, okay, I really need help. And this is then how I came across my first coach. But there was so much shame around this for me to even ask and to even make that step. And I think I was stuck at this place of not knowing what to do for a really, really long time. I was not resourced. And I just wanted to like highlight this too, that it's such a process, and that when we talk about this now, I'm thinking, wow, this sounds so wonderful. And it is a beautiful process once we get to this place of, wow, yeah, I really can make my own decisions and I'm the owner of my life and all of that wonderful stuff. But it's definitely a journey. And for everyone watching this right now and thinking, oh yeah, I'm not there. I'm not in this like victor mentality. There's stuff that I'm struggling with that I don't even want to look at yet. I hope you can take some comfort in knowing that we have this too. Like we also have stuff that we haven't uncovered yet, that we haven't spoken to another person in our lives yet. So it's this constant journey, or this ongoing journey. And you don't have to figure it out in one day. You don't have to figure it out right now. And that there is this thing called, I think, Amanda, you mentioned it before, divine timing, that whenever we are ready for it, it will show up. Like, we're not gonna like do everything in one session. We're not gonna cover everything in one like healing cycle, if you will. It's gonna come when we are ready for it and when it's meant to be healed. And there comes this, I feel like we're going back to like what we talked about in the beginning. There comes this trust in oneself that we can really do it. We have everything we need right now. You have everything that you could ever possibly need in your life. You have this already inside of you. And it's understanding that it's not an outward in journey, but an inside out journey, that you get to heal from the inside and not heal by doing something externally, but by shifting from the inside. I think this is also something that shifted for me when I always thought, oh, I need someone to fix me. And when I got out of that mindset and into the victor mindset, I was like, wow, I'm actually working with myself. I'm doing the work, not the coach, not the therapist, right? I cannot just show up and sit there for 45 minutes and take my pretty notes and be like, it's not a cognitive process, it's a somatic process. And this shifted so much for me when I learned, oh yeah, it's an inside out job. Like I work on the inside and then the outside is going to shift for me and reflect back what I have done internally. I think this is one of the most beautiful rewards that we get to seek from any kind of healing, really, that we then see on the outside. Oh, I have really become this, I don't know, beautiful butterfly on the inside. And then we see butterflies all around us too.
And sometimes even that part takes time too. Right? Mm-hmm. Being able to see, I find like, we're doing all the healing work, right? We're like going to the therapy sessions, doing the like breath work sessions, like we're doing all the things. And it's like, well, why don't I feel better yet? Like, why haven't things externally started to reflect what I feel internally? Just a little bit of patience. Like, that's another one of the gifts that comes with the healing journey, the cycles. I love that you mentioned that, like, Stephanie, the cycles, because it truly is, just as like the seasons have the cycles. I think that that's really beautiful too to remember. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And I would also, as we're talking about those external things, throw into the mix that though we mentioned community and those around us, that we need to be mindful of those things. And we need to be mindful of those people that we are letting into our healing journey, because not everyone is on that journey. That's something that I personally really struggle with when I see someone who's in that victimhood. Like, if you just
come on over,
drink the Kool-Aid. I promise you're gonna love the Kool-Aid. And you want that so much for them, but they don't want it for themselves. And so I think remembering that too, right? That while we are on our own healing journeys, so is everyone else in our life.
Mm-hmm. And I would even reframe that a little bit, of maybe if you said they don't want it. Well, maybe coming back to what Stephanie said, maybe it's not their time yet.
Yes.
Coming back to the divine timing, because as we're sitting here talking through all of this, I can't help but think, one, how beautiful like the bigger picture is, how beautiful are these cycles, the cycles of growth, the cycles of healing. Like, this is all so like wonderfully orchestrated, in our favor. It's so simple. Again, I think we talk about this a lot on this show. It's really simple what we're talking about. It's not easy. And that's a big difference. Like what we're talking about in theory sounds really simple, but the actual doing, the actual going out and doing the therapy and investing in the coaching and investing in your inner journey, not easy at all. At all. It's like one of the hardest things that you can do. But I do believe that we can make it a bit easier by leaning in to the divine timing, by recognizing that, there is an orchestrated path that we are on, and learning to surrender to what is, learning to surrender to that moment, stop trying to force, stop trying to, stop trying so hard to make things happen, when you kind of have to recognize that, like, again, not with getting too spiritual here, but like there's definitely something higher orchestrating all of this, because it's all too beautiful of a synchronistic synchronized. I don't know what I
Synchronistic.
was trying to say.
Is that a,
Synchronistic, is that a word? I don't even
I don't
know,
know.
but like we made it a word today. This whole cycle is just so synchronized, and it's so beautiful. And when we stop to really appreciate the beauty in it, like the beauty in the pain, the beauty in the trauma, the beauty in the suffering, because we know that through the suffering, something beautiful is waiting on the other side. It's not great in the moment. No, suffering sucks, but there's something more beautiful on the other side. And I think comes back to the ebbs and flows of life. We have this idea that, like, oh, we want to be happy all the time. But if we were happy all the time, happiness wouldn't feel as good, because we would never like be able to experience sadness. Like we need that polarization of like, what does sadness feel like, so that we can really experience joy and happiness. We need the trauma so we can experience the triumphs, and it's really beautiful when we think about it. And I get chills talking about it, because it's to me, that is the beauty of life. That is why we're here, is to be able to experience in its full force the weight of the trauma, and then the victory of the triumph.
Yeah, I just want to make the divine timing a bit more like practical, because I was thinking with the divine timing, I just heard this story the other day and I thought it's so inspirational to bring this in here, that sometimes, like Amanda, you were sharing, like it's so frustrating when they don't want the Kool-Aid, right? So sometimes it's like you're seeding something and you have no idea how this is going to shift someone else. You have no idea what's going on internally. And this is why sometimes we have people come to us after 2 years and saying like, I remember we had this conversation on your patio and then like it totally changed my life. And we're like, what? Okay. And we had no idea, right? Like this is the magic of coaching. And I think that the seeding, the timing also matters. Sometimes you could say something to someone and they would totally block and it would totally repel. And then when you bring it up in a different context, or you bring it up 2 years later, you say the same thing, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I feel enlightened, right? It really is about the timing too. It's not just, and I'm sure everyone who's also watching can relate to this. Maybe sometimes you had this experience where you've been to a lecture and you heard something, and there was someone, I don't know, introducing their book or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, it sounds interesting, but you never get the book. And then 2 years later, all of a sudden you find yourself reading the book and you're thinking, oh yeah, I went to the lecture. Oh, this is amazing. That means that when you went to the lecture 2 years ago, you weren't ready for the lessons from this book, but then 2 years later you are. Or maybe you listen to a song from a band and you're like, oh, it's okay-ish, right? And then 3 months later, you listen to the same song again, or you listen to another song from the same band, and all of a sudden you're like the biggest fan, right? So I just want to bring this in and make it a bit more like visual, to talk about this like divine timing, what that means. It's about the seeds, and then you got to plant the seeds in the right season for them to really become a beautiful flower or a beautiful tree. And sometimes that's the beauty of life. Honestly, we have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea how our seeds are going to turn out, but also to appreciate the not knowing, the unknown of the whole process. Like that makes life so interesting. Like, this is what gets me so exciting about life. Like, we have no idea about the ripple effects of what we are actually doing, not just as coaches, but just as humans in general. And yeah, and I guess as coaches, we get so high on this kind of stuff. So that's why we are the self-development geeks.
Mm-hmm. And so many amazing examples there, Stephanie. I love gardening analogies. I feel like they make so much sense for life. Like, you wouldn't just like, after 2 days of watering the seed, be like, oh, well, that one's a dud. Like, or you're like, oh, the carrots must be ready. And you like pluck out the seed. Like, we have to be patient. We have to water. We have sunlight. We have to take care of it. Right. And I'm seeing Julie in the comments has a really great analogy too. So she says, I started thinking about it, like constantly updating my wardrobe. So some items don't fit or I don't want anymore. And as I evolve, I want to move forward. So trying on new styles or playing and experimenting, finding the new fit of the current version of me.
Mm.
I love
Julie,
that.
that's beautiful.
Like, I don't want to go shopping.
I think that's a really beautiful way to think about this. Is, I just wrote down, because sometimes I write notes as we're talking because I get all of these ideas, but I wrote, like, sometimes I feel like I need to make a confession of, like, I don't know what I'm doing and neither do you. And like, that's the point of all of this. It's like, and I'm gonna go back to Julie's wardrobe analogy here. I remember, like, I would buy clothes in that moment thinking, oh my God, this is the coolest shirt I have ever seen in my life. And I would put it in the closet and, I'd wear it for a few months. And then I'd be like, I hate this shirt. This shirt does not match who Tyler is anymore. And I'm constantly like updating my wardrobe and updating like those clothes, because that is a really big point of, how we decide to show up in the world and things like this. But like, in the moment, I knew that was the most perfect shirt. In the moment, we know what we need to be doing, even if we have no idea how it's going to pan out, even though we have no idea, where we're going to be 3 months from now, but in the moment we make that choice. We say, that is the shirt that really matches who I am. I love it. Let me get it. And then 3 months later, we're like, okay, that's going to Goodwill. I hate this. Like, no longer my style. But that's the point of all of this, and I think really circling this back to trauma, like coming back to like the healing side of things, like we don't have reasons, or we don't have justifications for why bad things happen to us, to others, to the world. We don't understand this. There's no justification for that. But we do have choices. We can make choices to say, I don't like the way I feel, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to change it. I don't like how my life is going. What do I need to change? You know, and it all starts coming back to the bringing this all full circle, back to the planting the seed. You know, it all starts with one small action, one small step, you know, and I think we totally underestimate the power of taking one small step forward, you know, but it's through those one steps, it's through those tiny actions that the bigger transformation occurs. So celebrate the small steps, celebrate taking tiny action, celebrate the daily transformation that we are going through, because when you look back, you're going to see a beautiful picture. It's just not always clear in the moment, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And I know we're kind of like wrapping things up, but as the like wardrobe analogy, I'm like, there's two things that I feel like connecting our conversation to. It was like, first, our seasons conversation, right? Like we wouldn't go outside in the t-shirt and shorts like in negative weather. Like, you know, when it's cold outside, we wear different clothing. And the other thing I thought of was like, you know, what happens if somebody says, well, that's the ugliest shirt I've ever seen? Like going back to the people in our lives who are like, nah, that Kool-Aid ain't for me. And that's okay, right? Doesn't mean that we're going to go home and throw the outfit in the garbage. I mean, we might, because we decide we don't like it anymore, but it shouldn't be because of what other people have to say about it, right? So love that we've come full circle on this, and like really just, oh, I love this conversation. This was so good. And I just wanted to like leave everyone with the thought of giving ourselves some grace and having some patience with ourselves, really stepping into the being versus the doing, and just trusting the timing of things and allowing it to be okay and exactly where you are in your journey, and that it's perfectly okay and you are exactly where you're meant to be.
Yeah. And also, as a final thought, I just want to add to that, when you have one of those days where you think, okay, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be and everything's divine timing and I'm like enlightenment myself. And then the little voice comes and says, yeah, but you need to do this. Yeah, but you need to do that. Like, look, this can happen to you. This happens to me sometimes 200 times, right? I'm like, no, I'm aligned. Everything's cool. And then the little voice is like, no, you have to do that. It's like trying to, you know, put me in this hyper vigilant, I have to control everything state, and I need to bring it back and bring it back. And yes, sometimes I have to bring it back 200 times, and letting this be okay, like really letting this be okay, and giving ourselves a lot of self-compassion that we are in this, and that we're committed to ourselves. And really this relationship that we get to build with ourselves through this process that's for me the most precious thing that we can own in our lives, the relationship we have with ourselves and having inner peace. Like that's so, yeah, that's just priceless. We started with a breath. Let's end it with a deep breath.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for today. Although I don't want this conversation to end.
I'm not ready either.
You know, we could talk for hours upon hours upon hours, and I don't know. I don't think enough can be said for healing and for growing and for putting in the time to work on yourself. It is the best, in my opinion. It's the best investment that you can make in yourself, in your life. Mm-hmm. Go out there, grow, transform, continue to evolve, because at the end of the day, you are worth it. You are worth it. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for being here. We so appreciate your time. We so appreciate your attention. We so appreciate your love, and we so appreciate you. We will see you all next Friday for another wonderful, powerful conversation. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversation going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.